We're titling today's message, Future and Hope. Future and hope. As Christians, I know that every one of us in here knows and understands that we are in battle each and every single day. Every day we are in battle. 1 Peter 5:8 tells us that our enemy is on the prowl like a roaring lion, waiting to see who he can eat up, right? That doesn't sound like we just walk through life, just yippee-skippy around, right? I mean, our enemy is a roaring lion, just waiting to see whom he can devour. So it makes sense to be prepared for battle, right? To be paying attention, to be aware. That does not change when you get married at all. We're in a spiritual battle, whether we are single, in a relationship, engaged, married, does not matter. You're in a battle. And I would venture to say, once you get married, you're in a bigger battle. It doesn't matter, even if you're courting, and I'm using the word courting because I don't like the word dating. We do that wrong. So we're going to go with kingdom courting. Young people, if you're in a relationship, do kingdom courting, don't do dating. That's what the world does, and it hadn't worked out. It does not just apply to marriage relationships. The enemy is on the prowl to destroy any relationship he can that glorifies God. That is a key thing to make a distinction in. On the prowl to destroy any relationship that glorifies God. That can be a friend. That can be a mentor relationship that you have. That can be a classmate, someone you work with. If God is in the relationship, the enemy is going to attack it. If the enemy is not attacking whatever relationship it is we're focusing on, you're focusing on in your mind, it's probably not a God-centered relationship. And the enemy's just like, well, you can keep your pot-smoking, beer-drinking buddy. Y'all ain't glorifying God, so just keep doing it. Marriage is a foundational covenant created by God through which He manifests His presence and His power. That is a big deal. Marriage is not two people. Marriage is God bringing together two people so that His presence and His power can all be manifested better in your lives. Strong, loving, God-centered marriages are in short supply today. Very short supply. We need more of them now so that there can be more of them in the future. Strong marriages lead to strong families, and those strong families raise up the next generation. We've got to understand that our marriages are so vitally important, because if we want our children to have good marriages, it's important that we ourselves attempt that very same thing, that we try to set an example. We're always setting an example, right? And I understand, I came from a house that did not have a good marriages. I say marriages because I came from a house that had like 4 bad ones, or however many. But you can still end up all right. So don't think that anyone's doomed or anything. But we must understand that marriage was the first institution created by God, and it is made not to make us happy, but to glorify Him, to experience a deeper level of His presence, His power, and anything else that He wants to manifest through your relationship. Let me hear or see or raise your hands, whatever you want to do, if you agree with this. Our marriages and our homes are under attack by the enemy like they have never been before. This is where the war for young souls is being waged right now, these days, in our homes. Our homes are where our children's eternity is being won or lost. Our homes. Not public school, not private school, not in politics, not in Washington, not on Disney or any other TV show or movie that you watch. I hear a lot of, yes, I understand that there are contributing factors to the decline of the American family, but guess what? Regardless of what's on your TV or on your radio and going on in your public school, if you have raised a kingdom child, they're going to toss it. So this war that is being waged against our children and against our families, we can make all those excuses that we want. They're won or lost in our house. Joshua 24:15 says, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Amen. Whoever is running your home today is running your future. Whoever is running your home today will run your children's future. Our marriages, our relationships, and our homes need to be protected at all times. I'm not talking about a Glock. I do that as well. But we need to each and every day, each and every morning, gird ourselves up with the armor of God. Each and every day. And that is not just individually speaking. That is for your family. Parents, every morning, pray as you are putting the armor of God on your children. I will admit, the world that we send them out to each and every day it can be a scary place. It needs protection. Our marriage needs protection. Our relationships need protection. The belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, and to be prayed up each and every day. If we know that we are in a spiritual battle each and every day, day in, day out, why are we leaving the house without it? Why are we leaving the house without spending time in preparatory prayer? By that I mean a prayer that is going to prepare you for the day, knowing that there's going to be a battle. If you have Facebook, you might have seen this. Kimbo sent it to me last night, and I thought it was pretty fitting. And it's funny because Miss Sibby come up to me this morning and mentioned that she had a dream, and it was some house that she didn't know the house, but I was in the dream, and there just happened to be a mouse. And did I kill it? We're going to kill. So in her dream, I killed a mouse. Keep that in mind as we go into this. I thought that was pretty awesome. A good little bit before we moved in, we saw a tiny little mouse in the attic. We never saw any signs of it anywhere else in the house. Even after we moved in, we looked for signs, but nothing. A couple weeks after we moved in, we started smelling the weirdest, most off-putting smell, and it was always near plumbing. We tried everything, cleaned thoroughly, flushed lines, thinking that it might have been stagnant water because the water was on before we moved in, so we thought that that could be it. Even thought it might be the treatment plant, to no avail. Yesterday morning, I walked through the kitchen, right past the dishwasher, barefoot. I was headed to the laundry room to start laundry and was distracted. Derek, her husband, walked right behind me, following my steps. He saw faint movement and looked down, and there it was, a small rat snake. He picked it up and took it outside. He came back in and said, "That was your smell." Rat snakes put off an awful odor as part of a defense mechanism. He had been in our house for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Since he's been out, no smell. He came in looking for that mouse. That mouse was valuable to him. He wanted it, and he came in looking for it. I asked Derek how he thought it got in, and his response got me thinking this morning. He said he could have slipped in when any of us left the door cracked just a bit. As we were moving, our kids were going in and out, maybe walking out to the grill. It was small and sneaky and very well could have slipped right past us and us not even known he got in. This morning, the Holy Spirit said to me, "Do you see what can happen when you're distracted? How quickly the enemy can sneak in your door and sliver right past you. If he thinks there is something valuable there, he is going to try to sneak in and take it." And that's how it happens. We miss one church service that turns into 6 months. We have one drink that leads back into an old lifestyle. We send one text message that leads to something much worse. We tell one fib that turns into a trail of lies and deceit. The signs were there. I smelled the smell. I knew there was an enemy in the camp, but I was too busy to continue to look. So I cleaned around it and tried to make it better. If Satan can't have you, he will distract you. Once you are safe in the Father's arms and your name is written down, he cannot have you. So he tries to distract you. He tries to interrupt your holy living. He tries to break up your family. He tries to corrupt your mind. He tries to fill you full of bitterness and unforgiveness. He tries to stop you from getting other names in the book. He tries to stop you from witnessing. He tells you you can't. He ruins your witness through lies. Do not leave the door cracked. Lock it down. Be on guard. Put on the armor of God first thing in the morning and stay prayed up. Like I said, we need protection from the enemy, from his distractions, from his attacks, from his lies. John 10:10 tells us the thief comes not except to steal and to kill and to destroy. But Jesus came that we might have life and that we would have it abundantly. He wants our lives to be abundant. All right, we're going to do, if you haven't noticed, there's a big duct tape triangle on the floor here. We're going to do one of those weird interactive things where we make people do things they might not want to. And, hey, have you already started on lunch today? Okay, so you can't mess with me after the fact. It's already made. Will you and Danny step up and help me out? Hey, I asked, just so you know, I asked Sandra, and she said this would be okay. You're going to stand right here in the middle, looking at each other. You got to be on the line. So, God brought y'all together, right? You both believe that. All right, now, that's good. That's good. Now, remember, this isn't after all these years of marriage. This is your marriage from day one on, okay? All right, so turn around and go back to back. If you have ever disagreed on kids' names or pet names, take a step apart. Don't worry, I got multiple questions. If you have ever disagreed on food, take a step apart. I just said food and steps were already going. If you have ever disagreed on what music to listen to, take a step apart. Oh, hey, we're going to keep going. If you have ever disagreed on what you were going to do with your free time, take a step apart. Keep going that way. If you have ever disagreed on what you were going to watch on TV, take a step apart. If you have ever disagreed on what we thought we should wear when we leave the house, take a step apart. Holy moly. All right. Let's go to the corners. I want you to remember where they were, okay? Remember where they were standing. Now, on this next part, we're going to be taking our steps this way, okay? If you 100% agree that God should be first in your marriage, take a step. If you 100% agree that marriage is way better and it is a necessity to pray for your marriage, take a step. Y'all taking like giant steps. I'm going to have to ask less questions. If you 100% believe early on in your marriage that it was vitally important that your children go to church, take a step forward. If in your marriage you have taken time to pray together for your marriage or for your children, take a step. If you have prayed for your kids to receive salvation, take a step. If you have prayed that your children's spouse, when they get married, will be a Christian, take a step. They're moving towards God. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you very much. Yes, clap for the volunteers. They stepped very well. All right, so God brought them together. We know that. But when we were talking about earthly things and doing things our way that people disagree on, naturally, all of us, they went apart. That is what our marriage looks like when we are not relying on God. When we started on the corners and we started moving towards God, that is when everything was better, right? Everything else was disagree and all of this was agree. Where they ended, when it was the earthly stuff, how far were they apart? 20 feet, just in here. That was 6 questions. How many other things in life do we disagree on? Like Matt said, they would be miles and miles apart. This is your marriage right here. If this is your starting point, Danny, and this is your starting point, Sandra, the only way we get closer is to get closer to God. The only way our marriage is strengthened is not to try to become closer and grow without God. It is moving towards God constantly. The only way closer to each other is to be getting closer to God. He has to be the head of your marriage, the head of every relationship, the head of the home. He has to be the head of your children's lives. Our fight that we're talking about right now in our country, which is destroying our country, our fight is not just for our marriage today, in the way that we want to fix our world today. We wage this battle for generations to come. So our kids know what a kingdom marriage looks like. Men, this responsibility belongs to us. Men need to be teaching their children so that young men will one day know how to treat their wives. Ephesians 5:25 says, "Husbands, love your wives just as I have also loved the church and gave himself up for her." That is how God is telling us that we should love our wives. And look at what he went through. I mean, it's not far in the rearview mirror. We've talked about it. The most gruesome death ever recorded in our history. We're supposed to love our wives like that. And while we're not asked to physically lay down our lives, as Christ laid his life down, we must lay ours down each and every day, in submission to our Father in heaven. Why is our world so broken? I've heard a lot of people say it is because of fatherless homes. And we've all heard that, right? When you hear people talk about the crime rate and this going on here and this going on here, oh, it's fatherless homes. I will agree that may very well be a contributing factor. But I've seen a lot of good people come out of fatherless homes. And I have also seen a lot of homes that are completely broken that have two parents. So that is not the answer to our question. Our country and our crime and whatever else you want to stick that to is not because of fatherless homes. It's not. It's something nice to say. It's something to attach to something, but that is not the case. The problem is not fatherless homes. The problem is godless homes. In my upbringing, I either didn't have a father in the home or I had like 3 or 4 at, one time or another. It doesn't matter. Was God present? Yes. You can look back on, and my mom has apologized a ton of times for the way things were as we got older. But one thing she never had to apologize for was being supportive and letting us know that God loved us. Letting us know that regardless of what we did or got away with, that we didn't get away with it with God. He saw everything. Man, I've heard that a ton of times. Let's look at Joshua 24:15 one more time. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That is huge. I mean, as kingdom men, that is something that we desperately need to be clinging to each and every day because we set the tone on that. Do we mean it when we say it? Will we drop everything that we're doing? Will we drop every plan? Will we disregard every preparation made if we are called to serve God? We need to. We need to take that serious. And that goes for each and every relationship that God allows us to establish. There's a plan and a purpose for it. Our relationships are important. I firmly believe that if we live that out, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, that's going to change things in our hearts, in our lives, in the life of our significant other, in our children's lives. And if that impacts 4 people right there, how many more people does it affect when we leave the house? That story very well illustrated, and we know this, that the devil can't have you. He knows that. He's still going to battle for you. He's still going to lay traps. We've got to be protected. We've got to put on the full armor of God. We've got to be ready for it. We've got to expect it. Who in here has lived a day without spiritual warfare? I'm going to tell you right now, if you have gone a week in your life without being in spiritual warfare, I would question how much you're walking in faith and obedience. Because the Christian walk is the harder walk. Narrow and hard is the path that leads to life. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We need to have that on our hearts. And men, we need to engrave that in our hearts. And it needs to be a part of everyday life. We're not just fighting for what's right here, right now. It is for generations to come. He came so that we might have life and life abundantly. Who in here wants that for their children or their future children? It cost him to lay down his life. Why, if that's our expectation for our children, would we not expect to have to lay down our lives as well? That's what it's going to take. 100%. Lay down your life. Give it to God. Let him lead it. Let him have it. And just be obedient to it.